I've got Ruby Rose with me. How are you today?
Hi, Marie. I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So just to begin, do you want to kind of introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us a bit about where you came from and what you do now?
Sure, absolutely. So I help leaders lead with intention, create inclusive cultures, and achieve next level results. So I work as a coach. I work with execs and leaders, primarily within the tech industry. And prior to starting Align, I spent my career in leadership positions in high pressure corporate work environments, as well as working in the startup industry. So I spent many years working and living across different cultures and have had to rebuild my personal and professional life from the bottom up several times. So I understand the challenges that come with this and also what it takes to be a leader in today's new emerging work culture and the importance of cultural intelligence, which I talk about quite a lot, cultivating inclusive cultures. I understand this as a coach and also on a personal level. So yeah, what got me to where I was? So, through working internationally in companies of all different sizes, one of the main gaps I notice, as I know that we've spoken about as well, is in leadership. And there isn't enough focus on the importance of coaching for leaders. There aren't enough leaders that lead with intention and cultivate a culture of inclusivity that sparks passion and motivation. And this affects individuals, it affects teams, but it also affects the results within an organization and the success of the organization. So I started Align because I wanted to make a difference. And I wanted to work with leaders to empower them to step into their unique potential, to lead with intention, and to create inclusive cultures and achieve next level results.
So I was going to start with another question, but this whole kind of idea of culture around work. So I've just written some papers on this, and culture in the workplace can kind of destroy projects, make projects successful. It can have a huge effect on individuals and where the business is going. How do you start to break that down into promoting a culture that's going to really help organizations move forwards instead of backwards?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, actually. So I speak a bit about culture. It's not just, I think the first thing that people think of when they talk about culture is multinational or in different countries, which is super important. It's important within the organization, but with also with business partners. But as you and I know, and many people now know, is that within an organization itself, there are different cultures. There may be the marketing team, the sales team, the customer facing team, the engineering team, and these have cultures of their own. There are different silos, and that's where issues can start to arise. And the most important thing I think there is understanding and becoming aware of the differences. I think there's a lack of awareness of the differences of different cultures, and that's where the problems start to arise. So there are specialists in different areas, but they don't necessarily know how the other factors work together. So it's up to the leaders actually to create and cultivate a culture within the organization, one larger culture where the external culture that people believe in the organization is also reflected inside, and vice versa. And it's down to leadership, and it's down to understanding and accept and acknowledging that there are differences, and working with that, and understanding it's different for each organization, it's different for every individual. Treating it starts with the individual and then the team, the organization, but for me it all starts with awareness.
I think that's so key, because I've seen initiatives put in place and leaders just not get behind them. And so there's been issues with constructive challenge, there's been issues with communication, with teamwork, with all kinds of different things. And even down to kind of communication, especially between the different kinds of teams that you're talking about. You can be using the same term and be talking about something completely different. So if you're kind of if you're working in a company, and because normally people think that HR is supposed to change the culture of a business, but increasingly HR is more about optimization of people. So if you're a leader going into a company and you're quite a high up manager or a department manager, something like that, how can you kind of go about creating, the motivation and the, really good culture that you want to see?
Yeah, again, a great question. I To be honest, I think it's really about focusing on each individual and understanding the importance of individuals. their development, understanding what their needs and requirements are, what's important to them, understanding where they've come from in terms of not only internationally, but also what their background is, really understanding what is making up the organization. So who everyone is and what is making up the organization. People tend to be so narrow focused on the task at hand, especially with these fast growing companies. We're focused so much on the next step at hand, but we're not focusing on the individuals. And leadership isn't necessarily about the leader. We talk a lot about what's your leadership style. What leadership style do your team, do your people need? So we need to create that inclusive culture. We need to speak about what people need. What do we need to create something that's inclusive? It's not about what we have decided. It's not about deciding what values are and not explaining or understanding what is needed back from the people as well. It's talking about what people need and the leaders that people need right now in this new emerging culture. There's so much change happening at the moment, and unless people feel listened to and cared about and that they have a platform to speak on, there's no way that we can really create a culture where people are going to buy into the vision or the values or the project at hand. So it's really about creating awareness and working with individuals.
And that's another really important concept, buy-in, because it's really easy to do morale surveys and get the results back and do nothing about it, or say, oh, well, you know, they didn't like this, that's fine. And to kind of do, you know, progress reviews at the end of the year, which is not helpful for the person because they've already done the work, they can't change it. And to really give, it's so easy in the way things are to not give the employee or the individual the opportunity to change anything, to grow, to develop. So we're looking for ways to do that. What is, I mean, on top of kind of being a leader that is going to go and get to know their team and communicate with them and understand what they need, what are the other kind of opportunities that we can use to promote this type of culture?
Yeah, so I think that's a really big one. Is there is the survey that we had a survey, a employee satisfaction survey, and that happens with a lot of organizations, but it's a lot of the time it's a tick in the box. It's often handled by a third party, but what are we actually doing now? A lot of the time the higher up leaders and the higher up managers are deciding what that means. If somebody says that there's not enough communication, or their team says there's not enough communication, they decide what that means and what needs to be put into place. What needs to happen is that we ask the employees what they need. What do they mean by that? Because we can be speaking, as you said, different languages. So it's really about asking for feedback and having some vulnerability and leadership to say, what do you need in this situation? And based on that, there are different things that you can do, and that can be, oftentimes it comes down to development. So people feel that their development isn't listened to, and there may not be certain positions in that company, but what can you then do with individuals to make them feel that their skills are being developed in a way that they can then, if their position arises, they can take it, or they have the skills to, you know, to move somewhere where they're needed eventually. So it's all about developing people. The other thing there is, I mean, there's training that we can do, there's leadership training, but there are so many different types of training that we can offer to employees to help them build up their skills, and also leaders. There is coaching, there is mentoring, there are so many things that we can offer to employees that will help get more of an individual need met, rather than, you know, I mean, sometimes we're talking about people feeling that they're not listened to in the workplace. There's no employee engagement. Do they a lot of the offers are yoga, or, you know, things like that maybe somebody doesn't want that. Maybe that's not what they need. So it's about asking, what do you mean, or what does it mean to you? It's more about the employees to define what it means to them, communication, because, for example, in that example, you know, there's lack of communication from leadership, which is what we see a lot. What does that mean, and what do you need? Not, okay, I'm going to put up a board once a week with communication, when that's not actually what anybody means. It's about being really clear on the communication. There are trainings around conscious communication, coaching around conscious communication. So I think it's about investing in the company and in the culture to bring all of that together and make sure everyone's on the same page.
And actually, really, this benefits the business as a whole anyway, because when you're talking about upskilling people and developing people, it's not about keeping them underneath you. It's about seeing them go further than you could ever go by training them and helping them to do so. But this also feeds into business continuity, where why have you got a bottleneck or a silo where only one person's in charge of everything? That's just lack of delegation and lack of being able to lead properly. You should be able to upskill people and develop them to be able to spread the load and work as a team, because all you end up doing is actually fracturing a team and saying, well, you're in charge of this, you're in charge of this, you're in charge of this, and nobody's working together. And I can understand part of the reason for that, because it is very difficult to get that whole team ethos going where everybody can work together. But if you can do that, that's really powerful to be able to drive a team forward. And actually, while you're doing that, you're understanding what the team needs from you as well, developing and then helping business continuity. So I'm not
100%.
sure why this is not being adopted more. Have you got any thoughts on that?
I mean, there are really many reasons. I think a lot of people don't understand yet the benefits of it. We're very stuck in the old ways. And the world is becoming more digital, more global than it ever has ever been. And leaders need to develop new skills and approaches, but also let go of some old ones. But we're in a time of transformation at the moment. So that's not quite happened yet. But what we are realizing is that investing in people, investing in leaders, and how that is going to help with business continuity, it's starting to be adopted, but we're still in old, we're stuck in old ways quite a lot. And I think it's either a new company which doesn't realize yet, or it's not, they're in the finances yet, or it's an older company that's stuck in their ways. So it is happening and people are adopting it, but it's really a matter of understanding the benefits that it can have. And the thing is that people overcomplicate it, I think, a lot of the time as well. So it's quite simple. If you're leading a team of people, somebody, for example, wants to become a leader, there's no leadership position. Often the default answer to that is, well, there's no leadership positions available, when it could be, what is it about leadership do you like? Okay, why don't we develop these skills? There are so many opportunities within someone's role to develop the skills that they would need to become a leader. I honestly believe that a lot of it is down to understanding and having those skills to be able to pull the most out of employees. And a lot of leaders don't have the training or the skills, and it's often not their fault. It's just not been provided. A lot of people are incredibly intelligent, they're brilliant minds, they get promoted into a position because they were really good at their role, and the position is often a leadership role. Of course, they're not going to say, well, I need, or it might not be available for them to have the support that they need, and they carry on, they become a seasoned leader, but they didn't necessarily learn these skills. So it's a thing of what part of it is being vulnerable and asking for help, but also recognizing that leadership, I believe that some people come with it naturally, but there's also a set of learned skills that we need to pass on to leaders of all levels of an organization, not just of the highest level.
And somebody might say, well, actually, what you're talking about there is a manager, because a manager manages a team. So do you think that managers and leaders are completely separate, or do you think there's crossover? Do you think that managers have to be leaders in some way? How do you kind of think that all works?
So very interesting again. And I believe there's a crossover. So the way I see it is there is a crossover. I believe that managers, and if they're managing people, they should be leaders. Leaders inspire. Leaders lead with intention. They have a vision. They help people get towards a goal through inspiring them to do actions. A manager is more about managing tasks. Eventually, people aren't going to follow. If people don't feel inspired to stay in the same position, if people don't feel inspired to stay in the same company, if they feel managed, they're not going to follow. Leaders inspire people to follow them. And I believe that if you want to have a culture and a company that's inclusive, and you want people to stay, and you want people to believe in the vision and the values and the mission of the organization, everyone that manages people should be a leader and should have those leadership skills.
I think it would be very difficult to manage people and set. In fact, I've actually seen this done where somebody's come into a leadership position as a team leader, but yet manage the staff, giving them tasks, not knowing what they can do, what the tasks are, and have just allocated things, and nobody's been able to do what they've been allocated. And then they've just completely thought, well, you're not a leader or a manager, so I'm not going to listen to you anymore, which led to the breakdown of the team. And that was because that person didn't have leadership skills, but yet we're put in a management slash team leader position. So there is an issue there with maybe the way that people are being put into these positions in the first place, where they're not being given the skills, or they don't think that they need the skills. They're not self-aware enough. So what could we do about that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because that happens a lot. So I was reading a paper recently, and it was talking about how over 80% of, and the data came from 2020, but over 80% of people believe that we should develop leaders and we should invest in leaders within an organization, yet only 5% do. And interestingly, a lot of it is because people want to hire experienced leaders so that they don't need to put that training in, is what was talking about. So we need to change our approach, and we need to change the way that we look at this. I really believe that everything around this needs a new approach, because everyone needs the support as a leader. And it's not the manager or the team leader's fault. They don't know what they don't know, because they haven't had to do it before. So I think within an organization, and I talk about this quite a lot, we give benefits within an organization, often health benefits. You give support. There may be people going through stress, then there's mental health support, for example. But what about the proactive actions that we can take to stop people getting to that level of stress, to not being able to cope, which will happen if you have a team of, say, 15 people that you can't lead, that won't listen to you, or you have a manager that doesn't understand you. It will cause distress. So what we need to do is move from the reactive focus to more of a proactive focus, to have organizations and have leaders which understand what they're doing. And that comes through coaching. It comes through a combination of coaching and training and having those open conversations. But if we're investing in support in people after, we can invest in people, in support of people before, to not get to those situations in the first place. So to answer your question, for me, it's awareness and investing in our people. We need to invest in leaders. We need a big change. There's a new emerging work culture right now, and so many of us are working remotely. And in order to keep people engaged and motivated and to feel included, especially as we're based all around the world and we're different cultures, multiculturally as well, we need to really start to work with that and understand that, so that we can, grow the way that the trajectory is going as well.
That's an even bigger area of growth, though, isn't it? Where you're managing a global team, because I've managed global remote teams for many years, fairly large teams, and the skills that are required to actually manage people at that distance are completely different from if you're sat in the office with them every day. And it requires a lot more trust, a lot more hands off, a lot more delegation, but also a lot more getting to know your team, so that you know what they can do and what they can't, and how much they want to be delegated to, because you have to know what that person's reaction is going to be if they're not wanting to be delegated a lot of this particular work, or they want to be delegated that. You might know that if you're working in the office with them, but you're not going to know that unless you've spoken to them. If they're in, India or South America or something like that, then you've got the cultural differences and all that kind of stuff that comes with it. So I honestly think that that's a whole completely different skill set to do remote management. I'm not sure what your opinion is on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's something that we need more and more at the moment. And it is a lot about what you're saying, is that getting to know your team, and having the consistency of when we're meeting up with the team, the conversations that we're having, what the conversations are about, and understanding cultural differences. So it's not important to remember all of them, but it's really important to understand what they are. We all work differently. Different cultures work for longer hours. They might be used to working on weekends, whereas others aren't. Also, in terms of family, in terms of how the home life is, all of that needs to be understood, and that happens quite a lot. And again, it comes down to people assuming often what that person's motivation is, or what that person's drive is, or certain things, without asking the questions. And what we need to do is have constant communication and ask questions. I mean, even I know some companies that are doing reverse coaching or mentoring on the different types of cultures that they're working with as well, which is an effective way to start to understand what happens within organizations in a different company, in a different country, sorry, as well. So it is a whole different skill set, but I believe it's one we really need to grow at the moment. And with a lot of things being outsourced already, it was already happening. It was already, yeah, it was already a gap, I think, in cross-cultural, managing people cross-culturally and internationally. But now more than ever, things are spreading out. There's completely remote offices now, so it is a different skill set, and it's really important. And I think the key thing is communication and consistency, having consistent meetings, and being honest and open about whether or not you can make a meeting or how things work. So for example, in England or in the US, we might work to a really, really busy calendar. And oftentimes with managers, that tends to change when a one-to-one time can be, for example, or a team meeting time. In other cultures, they could have been waiting all day or all month for that, all that month for that meeting, and they might have a family thing afterwards, or something that's really important that it's at that time, and that's they've set that aside. So it's really important we stick to what we say, we keep consistent, and we have that constant communication and understanding and an open dialogue, and ask questions in the beginning more than we talk.
It even comes down to being respectful as such things as time zones, and not booking
Totally.
meetings in the middle of somebody else's night, which some people will turn up to and not tell you about for months. And then you find out they've been getting up at 2 a.m. for a meeting.
Exactly that. That's what I mean. And they've got families. So it's all about time zone. It's about understanding, you know, culturals. It's about understanding even current affairs, to really understand what's happening and to show respect and to give that room to speak. But yeah, about time zones, that happens quite a lot, because out of respect, they will show up for the meeting.
I do think what you said, though, is an important point about the calendar, because I think if you have been waiting for the one-to-one and you've got things you want to raise and you've put it at a certain time and then it's moved, I think that can cause a huge amount of distress to people, because actually they've worked up to that point. They know it's then. They know that they're going to be free after that to do what they want and get over it. And these one-to-ones, I mean, it depends how you're doing them. If you're doing them in a relaxed manner and you're doing them frequently, every now and again, then it's not too bad. But if it's the old style, where this is your quarterly one-to-one and you're worried about it and you're stressed about it. I mean, I used to hate it. I used to hate one-to-ones and performance reviews, because you just never know what's going to get said to you, because you've not had any contact with your manager for 6 months, and then all of a sudden they're telling you what you've done wrong when you've never even really spoken to them. So I think it's these little things that can actually cause a huge amount of distress to people, that if you're more aware of them, it makes things a lot easier for the team, and it makes them happier.
Absolutely. I think one-to-ones is a simple but key thing that we can do regularly, perhaps more regularly, well, definitely more regularly than you would with an in-office team, and to be consistent with it. If you don't change that unless you really, really have to, it's not just about shifting things around for some people. And a lot of the times people will collect, the things that they, like you were saying, that they need to bring up, but they may be nervous about it. And being there on time is showing the respect for someone else's time as well. So I think that that's a key thing with, and it comes up quite a lot. It seems like something simple, but it does come up quite a lot. A key thing with remote management is having one-to-one and team meetings, but one-to-ones regularly, and being consistent with it, being on time and not shifting them unless you absolutely have to.
I think it's the impression you give as well, as a leader or a manager, that if you're moving somebody or you're moving them at the last minute, it says that they're not important. And actually, the most important people to you as leader or a manager are your team. And if I had
Exactly.
to move anything at all, it would be with somebody above me rather than my team, because my team always come first to me. So I think that that's a really important thing to be aware of, how are you coming across to your team as well.
100%. How are people going to feel like they want to work and to feel motivated if they feel like they're not important and not, not in the focus of their manager? And now that we can't go up to someone and pat on the back and say, hey, I'm really sorry I didn't make it to the meeting, or to tell them beforehand, it's really important that these tiny little things make a big difference. We need to keep doing it, and we need to be consistent.
It's really a lot about being self-aware, isn't it? Like understanding and this is a big topic, and obviously, you know, you don't reach enlightenment within a week, but it's about looking at kind of where your failings are and where you can support your team more, and where you, because it's very easy when people in a team do something wrong to say, well, you've done that wrong, you've done that wrong, you've done that wrong. And I've had that issue this week, and I stopped myself and I said, that's not even their fault, that's my fault. I must have done something somewhere where I didn't explain that right, or we've had a discussion and we've not recorded it properly, and that's because my team aren't gelled in a way, and I've not facilitated that enough for that to happen. So then my next question was, what do you need for us to do this right? And I think that's about being able to accept and be vulnerable, that actually you aren't infallible, you can make mistakes, and you know, really the buck stops with the leader or the manager. It's not with the team, it's with them, because they're the ones promoting the culture within the team and dealing with the individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have the relationship with your team, to also after that question say, so what can we learn from this?
Mm-hmm.
Together, and then you're coming up with new solutions, so you're growing together as a team, because it's one thing to get it right, and then what can we learn from this to prevent it happening again? And then you're creating that culture where they feel like that they're part of it as well, and that their opinion matters. And if they had any frustrations, then that's gone by the end of the meeting, because you're working through it together. What lessons have you got to learn?
Exactly. And that's a time when we put the standard operating procedures together, so that we know that next time we're not going to do it like this, we're going to do it like that. So it's so important to then take the lessons, put it into a process and say, right, this didn't work, but this did, and we'll do it like that. And actually we've created it, we're in charge of it as a team. That's our thing. We've done it now. And I think from that failure, it's, you can then feel success, and you can then feel happy that actually you've solved a problem and it's not going to happen again. It's going to be better next time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's how companies are built. That's how we're people, right? We make mistakes. It's so important. And as a leader, it's really important, I think, to be vulnerable as well with your team, vulnerable through community. I mean, to some extent, you know, of course, it's upholding the company values and your level of professionalism, but also being human, so that they know that you know, you're not perfect and you're in it together, and that you're part of a team rather than you're their boss, which is the old school way of management. But we all make mistakes, and it makes them feel more comfortable that then if they make a mistake, they can be honest about it, and you're going to turn around and say, right, what do we need to get this right? What can we learn from this, and create an SOP about it?
This is something that a lot of leaders struggle with. How much vulnerability can you show as a leader before it's too much?
Yeah, I think that that's also a really important topic. So in my personal view, I think it's quite clear of where the line is between professionalism and personal. I think that your personal life shouldn't come into your leadership. It's different when we're talking about you know, being vulnerable with a mistake that you made with your team in a way that you can that they can help you, or that isn't diminishing how they value you as a leader. I don't believe that you should bring your personal life into leadership. I don't think that if there isn't a necessary reason for you to tell them something, you know, about yourself, your personal life that is really vulnerable, I don't see that why you should bring it into the conversation. It's important to remember you are a leader. You're there for the organization as well as the team. You're there for the people above you, if there is anyone above you, as well as the team, and make a decision of what you can say to your team. So this happens quite often. I think that people do divulge information that they then regret, or they shouldn't have. I think if it's going to make people respect your opinion less, or respect you less as a leader, it's something worth keeping to yourself. If it's something that's not professional, it's something worth keeping to yourself. And that applies outside of work as well. I mean, until you have a really close relation, or I mean, if you have a relationship where you're sure that you can tell someone something, you should probably think it over and sleep on it before you before you divulge the information. And I think that's what happens a lot. People say things in the moment without thinking, and it can cause issues, and it can cause confusion, because at the end of the day, your team respects you. You're still their manager, you're still their leader. You can say or do things that people in their team could say or do, and they won't respect them, but they'll still respect you, and you're their example. So you need to lead by example and also professionally.
Well, we're coming to the end of our time, which has just gone far too fast. Would you like
Yeah.
to let people know where they can find you on the internet?
Sure, absolutely. So you can find me via my website. You can find me on LinkedIn, on Instagram as well. Those are probably the best ways to find me, get in touch. I love to talk to new people, meet new people. So yeah,
And all this will be tagged below, so you can just go there and click straight through and get more information. Thank you very much for being a guest today. It's been fantastic chatting.
fantastic. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for having me.